Would you like to speak like a native British person? Well, new research says that sounding like a native British speaker is all about knowing and using simple phrases in English, things British people say every day. In my podcast H35, I talked about research from a Japanese university that showed this recently. It's that use of common everyday expressions that native speakers use all the time that make you sound fluent to your listeners. So it doesn't need a huge vocabulary. So if you want to sound more British, this podcast is worth 10 minutes of your time. I'll show you how to sound noticeably more British with just a small effort. So just to recap, this is research done by 2 PhD students, Kotaro Takikawa and Shungo Suzuki, both scientists at Waseda University in Japan. They studied what makes language learners sound fluent to native speakers, and they published the results of their research in 2025. Takazawa and Suzuki discovered that it's expressions, common everyday phrases, that really make the difference, make you sound significantly more fluent, much more so than rare or complex vocabulary. Or as I said in podcast 835, using simple common phrases beats using big fancy words every time you want to sound fluent. That last way of saying it is a much more informal British way to say that. So here goes. The research found that when speakers used common English phrases, things that are well known, they tended to speak faster with fewer pauses, and native speakers immediately felt more comfortable. Native speakers, of course, recognize the phrases you're using as common ones, phrases they'd use, and therefore they identify quickly with you. It's quite a powerful effect. To identify with someone, that means you feel like them. So they'll feel you're like me if you use common phrases. And that's great news for English language learners. With a vocabulary, say, of a couple of thousand words and some well-known phrases, you can sound very convincing in an English speaking exam. Imagine that. Of course, if you're in conversation, then you also need to be able to understand. But if you're practicing using Adept English, meaning that you do enough listening, then that will be taken care of. Your understanding will be great. Of course, you'll understand many more words and phrases than you can say. That's perfectly normal learning a language. But understanding is key. If you don't know what the other person said, how can you reply? Keep going and your speaking will catch up with your listening in the end. So today we're focusing on how to help you sound fluent. So in podcast 835, I covered some common phrases, very common phrases, that get used in certain situations. Today, let's tackle a few more of those. I think you found 835 quite useful. So here goes with some more essential British phrases that'll make you sound more fluent. Different ones this time, of course. How to apologise. What does to apologise mean? That's apologise. Well, that's UK English. In US English, it has an IZE on the end. And to apologise means to say sorry. Sorry is probably one of the first words you learn in English, like please and thank you. And British people say sorry a lot. But let's build on that. So, situations. It might be that you have stood on someone's toe in a bar at a concert, or you bumped into someone leaving the bakery. It may be that in work, you've sent the wrong document via email, or you've interrupted someone in a meeting. And I'll cover some more serious situations, perhaps where you have offended someone. That's to offend, OFFEND. Here are some phrases that help you say sorry in those situations. It's all about being polite and clear. Number 1, you walk into a room at work not realizing there's a meeting on in there. Everyone turns to look at you in the doorway. You say, "My apologies, I didn't realize there was a meeting on in this room." And you gently close the door. Everyone thinks, "Oh, what a nice, polite person." They empathize with you. They know how you feel. We've all walked in on something by accident. Situation number 2. You stand on someone's toe at a concert in a bar. You might say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to stand on your foot. It's really busy in here tonight. Are you okay?" You could even start up a conversation. Similarly, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spill your drink. It's really busy in here tonight, isn't it? Let me buy you another one." Number 3. What if someone has misunderstood something you said and they've perhaps taken offense? They're upset with you, all because of what they think you said or think you meant. You might say, "Let me clarify. What I meant was dot dot dot." To clarify, clarify, means to make clearer. So this one, "Let me clarify, what I meant was." That phrase is really useful if you've put your foot in it, as we say. To put one's foot in it in English means to say the wrong thing. So that's for when you realize someone has misunderstood what you meant and they've taken offense. Even more serious, if you've been told off for doing something wrong and you sense that you are really in trouble here and you know you've made a bad error, this might be particularly useful in work with an angry boss. Say you work in a restaurant and you've tripped up and spilt soup all over a customer, or you've sent a report to a customer that should only be seen inside your company. So here are the sorts of words which might help here, which might diffuse the situation. That's diffuse. To diffuse means to calm something down. You might say words like, "I understand. I take full responsibility. It won't happen again." This is the sort of language that might calm down an angry boss and gives you the best chance of keeping your job. It shows that you get the seriousness of the situation and you're reassuring your boss, "I've learned from this. It won't happen again." Number 5, what about situations where you've got the wrong end of the stick? We say in English to get the wrong end of the stick when someone has completely misunderstood a situation or completely misunderstood something someone said. You've understood one thing, the other person meant something entirely different. So examples of that may be when you're taking customer details by phone. Again, this is probably in work. You've taken down the person's details and you realize halfway through that it should be their son's details you're taking down. You might say, "Oh, sorry for the confusion. Let's start over." Or if you want to be more British rather than American sounding, "Let's start again." Or "Forgive me. Let's start again." If you're working in customer service, then of course you take responsibility even when it's your customer that's got it wrong. So just to recap on those useful phrases for when you need to apologize, "My apologies, I didn't realize. I didn't realize there was a meeting on in here. I didn't realize you were there and I bumped into you. I didn't realize this was your parking space. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Stand on your toe. Knock your cup of coffee out of your hand. Let me buy you another one. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to knock your suitcase over. Let me clarify, what I meant was..." Let me clarify, what I meant was that Man United are still a good team, of course. It's just they've been doing less well under the new manager. Let me clarify, I didn't realize that was your mother. What I meant was that she looks very friendly. Fill in your own details there. I understand. I take full responsibility for the mistake. It won't happen again. This is for when you've made a big mistake, usually at work. Sorry for the confusion. Let's start again. This is for when you've had a conversation with someone and got the wrong end of the stick. You realize halfway through there's been a misunderstanding and you need to start again. Hopefully those are helpful. Listen to this podcast a number of times so that these well-known phrases become phrases that you can use quickly, fluently, without effort. You'll be sounding more like a native British speaker in no time. And let us know whether this episode is helpful. I can always make more like this.